We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated, secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
Today we have Kimberly Lebbing, who is neuroscience-based transformational coach and has an international best-selling book. And we're just so excited to have you here today, Kim, and talk about how people pleasing can actually hold us back in our own productivity. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today, Lindsay. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. And I want to start off with, because we've talked about how people pleasing can kind of act as this, subconscious pattern, and it kind of holds back our efficiency and getting things done, right? And it can kind of slow us down. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the work I do, I work with people with the subconscious patterns. So, just to give you a little bit of background on that. And people
Yeah.
pleasing is the number one thing that I see with business owners and entrepreneurs. And it shows up in so many different ways. Um, it's it's the reason why their schedules are so full, because they have a problem with saying no. So they say yes, they lack boundaries, they end up doing more than what really is necessary. It pulls them away from their goals that they really want. The things that they want to achieve end up taking a back burner because they're doing so much else that isn't even relevant to what they're doing, or not as much of a priority. It steals their energy. And I see a lot of times they say yes to something and then they feel bitter. So there's like this push pull thing. Like, I can't figure out how to stop this behavior because it's like so internal and so deep, but I also feel bitter about it. And so it's really a vicious cycle that I see, and it's so common. The level of it is different, but it is really, really common.
Yeah, yeah. That push pull you mentioned. I can like feel that. It's like that ping pongy energy of like, what does this person need? What does that person need? Right. It's like versus, just staying on track and truly being efficient to what it is you want to create.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a game changer to be able to shift this kind of energy or this kind of pattern, um, where you're no longer doing it. And it'll show up in business, it'll show up in relationships. That's one thing I want to say is if it's in one area, it's in other areas. 100% of the time.
Yeah.
It'll be in with even with your family, your spouse, your kids. It'll show up everywhere and it'll drain you. It'll really suck the energy out of you.
Yeah, yeah. So looking at the different areas that it shows up in, like particularly looking at leadership and, the goals that we set, in the forward movement that we're having, whether that's in our businesses or in our careers, how can people pleasing get in the way of leading effectively?
Oh gosh. I'll tell you the worst case I saw so far to date. I went in and worked with a sales team who was, the owner hired me because he wanted to increase sales and work with the team. Well, they had one of their managers in the room who was, even the owner recognized the people pleasing aspect of him and how it was showing up. And he was so overwhelmed because the guys would come in and say, I need help with this. I need help with that. And he'd drop everything
Mm,
and work on whatever it was that they needed, even if it was outside of his job. And so he wasn't getting the things done that was his job. And
yeah.
had several conversations about it. And then when I talked with him just a little deeper about the problem, it was also going on at home. He said from the
Mm,
time he got home, so he'd work late because he was trying to catch up, so he wouldn't get in trouble. And then he'd get home and it would just be constant. Wife would ask him to do this or kids would ask him to do that. And he was exhausted. So
mm,
it really affected the whole team because
yeah.
he wasn't staying in his lane because he was saying yes literally to everything. So it was a big game changer for him, to be able. I remember after we worked together, um, with my 4-hour process, a little bit more about that later, but he said I was able, like his big thing, I asked him how it went, how's it been going over the last week? And he's like, I was able to tell my wife no. He was
Oh,
just thrilled. Just thrilled that he was able to say no without the guilt and all the things. So, and at its essence, I will say this, at its essence, it's guilt driven. It is 100% guilt driven, um, with why the behavior's there. The reason for the guilt may be different, but that's where
yeah.
it's coming from.
Yeah. So, in leadership, it sounds like it's kind of this, instead of being a leader, he's being a doer. And, because as a leader, we have to think from a higher level perspective of how do we run the business? How do we drive the ship forward? Right. Like all of these things that you really have to, you can't be in the weeds to be able to make some of these decisions. And so if it almost sounds like that's pulling you down into the weeds where you're not able to, do what you need to do to get the ship where it needs to go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you nailed it with the doing part. Like he needed to be up here and he
Yeah.
was totally in the weeds. And I feel like this affects, businesses that are wanting to scale, that are wanting to move up. Like
Yeah.
there's, getting in the weeds of the doing is the thing that holds them back. And many, many times the origins are some form of people pleasing or something deeper is always behind it. So that's been my experience with it.
Yeah. So how can we figure out where that comes from for us? I know you said there's the guilt piece. Like, how can we figure out like if this is something we're struggling with, where can we figure out where that came from for us or how that showed up in our life?
Yeah. So this is one of those things, like people pleasing is something that I describe as really a surface level problem. There's always a lot of guilt associated with it, but there's also the thing that you have to do is find the deeper problem. Like, what is it
Yeah.
really about? Is it
Yeah.
because it's not about, I just want to say yes to everything. We
Right.
already know that you really don't. Um,
Yeah.
but you're doing it out of, maybe I don't, maybe there was a time where I didn't feel accepted or
Mm.
I'm thinking about a client I worked with a couple years ago, actually, and people pleasing was her number one thing, and was super frustrated with her business and the way things were going because she was just like the other guy, just dropping everything with employees and constantly putting out fires and then feeling bitter feeling bitter and frustrated that she wasn't doing all the things that she wanted to do to move things forward. And for her, the people pleasing initially came from something that happened on a playground, like back when she
Mm.
was like 7. And it had to do with feeling accepted. And it played into so many different areas for her, with her relationships, with even how she showed up, with, always having to be perfect when she, or feel like she looked perfect when she went out in public. And so that perfectionism was playing a piece of it. It was big. It was really big. But that feeling of not feeling accepted or worthiness. So really, to answer your question, is digging into what is that? So where did it happen? And really just thinking about, like, when was the first time this was a problem? And I tell people, like, pull out your journal. Like, this isn't something that you're going to be like, oh, I know exactly what it is. It takes some quiet time. It takes some journaling or working with someone on it to figure out what that is.
So it almost sounds like it's kind of this need or this, searching or grabbing for maybe some affirmation from other people on our own worthiness, like outsourcing that to, oh, I can help you and I can do this and now I feel good enough.
Yeah, yeah. Again, you nailed it. It's a deep inner need. And
Yeah.
because we haven't resolved it within us, we look for outside validation. And
Yeah.
that's where the behavior stems. So really, the key to figuring out and stopping it, for the first step in that, is really to find out, where did it start. And
Yeah.
honestly, this can go even deeper than, a 7-year-old on the playground. It can be a generational pattern. It can be something that was learned. So there's all these other things going on subconsciously that could be contributing to that. And I find that quite often also. There's a lot of research about how behaviors and uh, patterns are passed down to us generationally
Yeah.
as well. So it can go really deep.
Okay. And you talked about the journaling piece. So you said one of the first things we should journal about is like when is the first time I noticed myself doing this? Is there anything else we should add to that, initial journal entry to start figuring that out or addressing that?
That would be the first thing is, where else has this occurred?
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, yeah. What other areas does it occur in? And just really getting real.
Yeah.
It's getting real with yourself about, where does this show up? How does it show up? How is it affecting me? How is it affecting my business? And really getting real, not in a way to really beat yourself up, but in a way to recognize where the pattern is. Because
Yeah.
you can't solve a problem that you're not aware of. Awareness is key in starting to change a behavior.
Absolutely. And I know you have oh my gosh, I'm so
Bless
sorry.
you. It's okay.
I'm
Bless you.
normally not this bad. I know you have extensive training and certifications in neuroscience based transformational coaching. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you have the 4-hour rapid results process. So if we were to come to you, we did our journaling, we figure out this is something that I'm struggling with. We got a little bit of clarity through that journaling process. And then we come to you and we want to learn about that 4-hour rapid results process. How would you walk us through that?
Oh, sure. So, well, first I want to say I can help you identify it. That's one I feel like that's one of my superpowers in this. And I want to give you a little bit of the backstory behind the 4 hour. Because when I was starting out my entrepreneurial journey, I really struggled. And one of the reasons I discovered that I was struggling so much is, I grew up in a house where I was verbally abused. There was a lot of bullying with my dad specifically, which also showed up on the playground when I went to school. And I really struggled when I started my business. I actually had several businesses that I had gone through, and I was always like, well, this one's not working. Maybe it's this. And turns out it was me that had the problem. And I had tried everything. I had gone through counseling. I had tried affirmations and going to all kind. I did all the things, the books, the seminars, the all the things. And it wasn't until I discovered neuroscience that I was able to really shift things quickly. And so for me, my first real experience with this deep dive into what was causing a behavior, I was struggling with inconsistency in my business. And in one day, that was shifted in one day. And
Hmm.
behavior change happened immediately, relationships changed. And that really got me thinking and diving into this is why I have all these trainings and all these certifications, literally thousands of hours now on neuroscience based coaching. And what my process is what I've done is I've taken the best pieces of what I've learned, combined with intuition, and put it all together into a 4-hour process. And in that process, we identify what the real problem is. We discover where it came from, like what was it? We shift it subconsciously, which is sort of like a reframing, but we do it at a subconscious level so that the neural pathways literally change within that time frame. And then I help them embody what it is that they want to be, like from a new energy, so that and that's a subconscious thing too, so that they get into action right away. And this is literally a 4-hour process, not 4 weeks, not 4 meetings, like a 4-hour chunk of time where we take you from, this behavior that you want to overcome to, where you want to be. And had really great results with it through the years. And I'm even teaching it now to other coaches. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool. So give us an example of like, maybe someone you took through that process or what that looked like, or, what you guys found as you kind of broke down those steps and worked them through that.
No, absolutely. Thanks for asking. Probably the biggest, and I think people can, this is probably the second biggest thing pattern that I see with people. And I had a business owner who came to me. She had two businesses, but one of them she was wanting to scale it. She was wanting to hire more people and train them and get it moving, and hadn't been able to. Like in 3 years, just kept spinning around at the same place. She wasn't doing horrible, but wasn't where she wanted to be. And when we dove into what was it really, I think when she came to me, she thought it was imposter syndrome, which is another
Mm,
surface level thing. We throw
yeah.
around that word a
Yeah.
lot, but it's very
Yeah.
surface level. There's something much deeper behind imposter syndrome. And for her, it was trust. So,
Awesome.
and it was a very specific thing from, something that she had thought she worked through. She actually had been in counseling for like 10 plus years on this thing about trust, and it had not been resolved neurologically. Like in her mind, she had worked
Yeah.
through it, but
Yeah.
like the subconscious change, the patterns had not taken place. And so
Right.
we shifted that, and in one session, she, within 90 days, had hired 3 people and increased her sales by it was like 67%. It was a huge, huge, huge shift in what she was able to do right away. So, and it is a common theme. I see people able to go and make more money pretty quickly once they've shifted whatever the block was that they has been holding back the most.
Yeah. And so how do you do that? Like, what did that look like when you say you shifted it and you're using the neuroscience? Like, what does that look like?
Um, so using the neuroscience, let's see, what does that look like? I mean, it's a 4-hour thing. There's a lot of me guiding you
Mhm.
through what it looks like. There's hypnotic language used in the shifting. And the biggest, most important, well, there's a couple of things, a couple of keys that I do that's different than what, other people doing this work is. One is I deal with the subconscious resistance because we would all change instantly if we didn't have the subconscious resistance to it.
Right.
And that's what stops us. And it's usually fear-based because your subconscious mind just wants to keep you safe. It wants to do what's known, and it's just trying to keep you safe. So we get to the reason behind that resistance as part of the process. And so that's mostly dissolved. We're never going to dissolve all of it, but it's mostly dissolved. The part two of that, of, you know, the impact is getting to the deeper reason behind it. And that's important too, being really, really specific because it works kind of like dominoes where, if you knock down the one at the beginning, like they all go down and literally everything else feels different and you see it from a different perspective because you've dealt with the things, the deeper things that are subconscious patterns that have been there probably ever since you can remember, when you're really getting real about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a little bit of what it looks like.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So it's kind of like identifying, where it comes from, figuring out what's in the subconscious and then communicating to the subconscious, it sounds like, to let that know how to make that shift.
Yes. Yes. And it's not like you're totally and completely aware of everything that's going on. So I'm not like, I don't do hypnosis, but there is hypnotic language used in the process. So you're very aware. It's not a trick. It's not, anything like that. It's really a way of releasing baggage, whether it be from generational or, from when you were a child or, anything like that. It's releasing that and it being able to clear that filter that you've been seeing things through so that your future decisions are based on being in a neutral state. So you're not responding to people like people pleasing. You're not responding to people from a place of something that happened when you were 7. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And what strategies do you have or would recommend for anyone listening who is like, gosh, yeah, I am just, that's definitely me. That resonates. I'm struggling with that. I'm doing the people pleasing. What strategies do you recommend to them for overcoming that?
I would say, well, one, do some journaling. Like I said,
Yeah.
find out
Yeah.
where did that come from? And the first and most important thing is just being aware of when you're doing it. So bringing that awareness to it and making note of that and really giving yourself grace to, if especially if you're doing this on your own, it's not going to change quickly and easily on your own. It's a pattern that's going to be you recognizing where you're doing it and when you're doing it and how you're doing it. And that's really the first step. You can go back to, if you've identified where it came from, what's the lesson in that, what's, to be able to move yourself forward.
Yeah. And I know you talked about boundaries too. And it sounds like, to go back to the guy that you were talking to as the example, he told his wife no for the first time. And that was really exciting. How did he get to that point to say no for the first time, or set that boundary for the first time? Like, how can someone, maybe if they're like, gosh, I don't even know where to start?
So for him, because he worked with me, I worked with their whole team. So I
Yeah.
went through this 4 hour process with a group of, they were roofers, to be honest. So they were out, knocking on doors and pounding on pavements. And so it was a group of men that I took through this 4 hour process. And so, because the changes are neurological and subconscious, he didn't have to try and say no. It just happened. It was because it's changed at the subconscious level. If you're not doing that, then you're going to have to be conscious of the decision and be consciously aware. And it may feel really out of alignment because of the
Yeah.
pattern. So it won't feel good to do that. But for him, it was fine because we had shifted the patterns at the core.
Yeah. And so you mentioned there's neuroscience based techniques, that rewire these patterns. Is there anything that we can do at home along those lines as well?
Yeah, so you can start like again, recognition is a big piece.
Yeah.
Start noticing, or you can add in affirmations. Actually, what I like even more, questions that you can ask yourself, like, how can I be uh even better at setting boundaries for myself today, or something like that, or how can I stay on track with my goals today? So questions that get your subconscious mind thinking in a direction that you want to go, where many times what we do instead is, why did I say yes to that? Why did I,
Yeah.
and then our brain just focuses on the negative. It focuses on,
Yeah.
well, because you weren't focused or whatever it was. It focuses on the negative. So really being strategic with the questions that you ask yourself, even
Yeah.
internally, is a huge step in overcoming it on your own.
Yeah. Well, that's huge because it's like when you make a mistake, or not even a mistake, like you just, you make a decision in the wrong direction. Oh, I people pleased again, right? Like as we're working through this, and then, you go beat yourself up more. That's not going to help you versus, like you said, asking these questions, getting curious. Why did I do that? Right? What can I learn from it this time? How can I create that forward movement? So I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Curiosity is key in so many areas, just in
Yeah.
general, but with ourselves, with other people, and conversations, it's huge.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned earlier that, getting rid of our people pleasing tendencies can actually lead to making more money. And you have a free gift for those of us who are entrepreneurs. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll give you the background story. So it is it's a freebie download of a case study of a client that I worked with, who after our and this was back up a minute. This was before I had put all the pieces together. So it was in the very, very beginning. And he still had amazing results. And it's how my 4 hour rapid results process took one of my clients from a zero business to over 1 million. So basically, we worked together, and he had multiple businesses, and we worked on something that had been a problem for a really long time. I think consistency was the thing that he came to me about.
Mm, okay.
And what turned up in the session was something that he thought he had worked through. Again, there was he had been in counseling, and he had thought he had worked through it and hadn't. Up here, so at the subconscious part. I say subconscious, but I feel like it's heart and mind connected. It's both,
Mhm.
really. And we were able to clear that and released a lot of guilt and shame. It was a huge amount of guilt and shame for him. And he went out and created another business shortly after we worked together that was an idea. And literally in a year, he was moving it to seven figures. Like it was that huge. And according to him, he wouldn't have been able to move forward in that way had he not cleared these things that were really, really big obstacles for him.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us how to, really reflect on what those things are that might be causing our people pleasing, how that can hold us back, and how moving past that can create a lot of, new levels of success and meaning in our life in whatever that looks like for us and what we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you for having me on today. It's always a joy to be able to talk. And my hope is that the audience will take these steps and actually go do the work, go do the deep work. You will thank yourself later for doing the deep work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world. And as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well-being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.